Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our last, the final segment in our microeconomics lecture series. All right, in this last part, we are going to dedicate our effort on the elasticity of supply, price elasticity of supply. In the previous video, we discussed about the price elasticity of demand and all the various tenets associated with it. The video had been very long because the end user is actually the issue of concern or the bone of contention. So in this one, we are now looking at firms, on the reaction of firms towards the changes in the price. Okay, are they going to continue supplying or are they not going to continue supplying? So that's what this video is all about. All right, so let us go straight to the business of the moment. All right, so price elasticity of supply, what is it? All right, so when you are talking of price elasticity of supply, this is where the responsiveness, okay, this is the responsiveness, okay, of supply, okay, of supply to change in price, okay, change in price. All right, it is a measure of firm, okay, a measure of firm's ability, to adjust the quantity, all right, to adjust the quantity of goods it supplies. Okay, it is a measure of the firm's ability to adjust to the quantity of goods or of a good it supplies. Okay, so is there a particular formula? Yes, it is there. Elasticity of supply is equal to percentage change in quantity supplied or over percentage change in price. So just like demand, we are going to have the numerator as for the quantity demanded, quantity supplied, and then the denominator, the change in price. All right, there are some few graphs I just want to highlight for you. All right, if the elasticity of supply is perfectly inelastic, okay, that's the perfectly inelastic supply. The graph is likely to be shown as follows. Okay, this is the price, this is the quantity supplied. Okay, if it is perfectly inelastic, then we are going to have the supply curve showing these characteristics. Okay, that's the supply. Okay, that's the supply curve. It's the supply curve, right? So whatever price that is going to be charged, the supply is going to be constant. All right, the quantities are going to be constant. All right, at whatever price we are going to have the same supply. All right, then we have a situation where we have got what we referred to during the demand curve, I mean the demand elasticity, where we talked of unitary elasticity or unit elastic. Okay, if we are having a unit elastic of supply, unit elastic supply, okay, unit elastic supply, a unit elastic supply has got a graph like this one, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, sorry, my graphs are like, you know, showing some, they're not actually seated on the horizontal plane. All right, I'm sorry for that. So we're still having the price on the vertical axis and the quantity on the horizontal axis. Okay, so what you need to know is that the supply curve will start from the origin going this way, right? Okay, that's the unitary. If there is a change, it is going to have a graph like this. So these are the supply curve graphs. If we have got unit elastic supply, okay, whatever change in price is going to trigger an equivalent change in the quantity supplied. Okay, now that's the curve for unitary elastic supply. All right, what about when we are having a perfectly elastic supply? Okay, perfectly elastic supply. Let me just draw it on this corner. Elastic supply. Okay, we're having a curve like this, where we have the P, you've got the quantity. Okay, but in a perfectly elastic supply environment, we are going to have a supply curve as this one. Okay, this is the supply curve. Okay, why is it at that point? Okay, because the assumption is at this particular price the suppliers can supply. Okay, the suppliers can supply the quantities they can supply, but after this price they can't supply anything. Okay, no one is going to need their product. All right, even if they need, but the suppliers themselves are not going to allow any supply. Okay, they are not going to allow customers to buy whatever price that is below that. Okay, so this is the price at which they feel they need to supply. They can supply at that price, but if the price lowers, okay, if the price goes down, they can't supply anything. Okay, they can't supply anything. It's either it can go to zero, there won't be any supply. So at that price they can supply. Okay, what about a situation when supply is inelastic? Okay, inelastic supply. Inelastic supply simply means that at whatever price they are determined to supply. Okay, at whatever price they are determined to supply. Okay, so usually it's almost like this cave, but because it is not perfectly inelastic, then it is a bit inclined somehow. However, it touches the quantity line. Okay, it touches the quantity line. Okay, touches the quantity line. So the quantity supplied. Okay, so in this case, when the supply, when the elasticity of supply is inelastic, then we have got our elasticity index less than 1. Okay, the elasticity of supply is less than 1, then we are having a situation where we are having an inelastic supply. Okay, so this is the quantity which could be supplied at that price. Okay, but the quantity supplied could continue to be supplied, okay, because this product has got an inelastic supply. Okay, the price elasticity of supply is inelastic. Okay, which means there is an assumption that at whatever price, okay, the quantity that is going to be supplied is not going to change. Okay, the quantity that is going to be supplied is not going to change. All right, what about a situation where the supply is just elastic? Okay, when we have all right, so ladies and gentlemen, this graph we talked about, but when we have a situation where the supply is elastic, which means it do changes. Okay, when the price reaches a certain level, the supply do change. All right, so we have this arrow, okay, the supply curve, which cuts the price axis. All right, so at this price they can supply, but you can see that as the price increases, the supply is also increasing. Okay, the as the price starts to rise, the supply is also rising. The supply is also rising. This is why you are seeing a graph that is rising a bit. At this level, they are supplying these quantities. Okay, supplying these quantities, but at this price, they will be supplying more quantities. Okay, that's it is elastic supply. There is a minimum price they are expecting, but as the price rises, they continue to supply more. Okay, they continue to supply more, as you can see there. All right, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. Okay, now let's talk of the issues to do with factors affecting the supply of commodities. Okay, factors affecting elasticity of supply. Okay, the first one is the existence of inventories of all kinds of goods and their perishability. All right, if we have got more quantities of inventories around or within our warehouses, which are perishable, we might be motivated to supply them. Okay, then ease of adjusting labor inputs up or down and the availability of labor. This also affects the quantities which could be produced or supplied. All right, so that's another factor we have to consider as well. Then the spare capacity. Do we have a spare capacity within our production systems? All right, if we don't, there could be some implications. Okay, there could be some implication. Maybe we are already operating at full capacity. Therefore, we can't actually continue to produce more or to supply more. For the purpose of supplying more. All right. But if we still have got some spare capacity to utilize, then we can continue producing. Then availability of raw materials and components. All right. How are they in terms of availability? Are they going to be available if we need them? All right. Sometimes it might be impossible to obtain the raw materials. Therefore, we can't supply if we do not have the raw materials to manufacture a certain product, or if we do not have the channels, the supply channels for the components required. Let's say in the production of computers, sometimes there are certain components which might need to be imported thousands of kilometers away. So that might affect the supply as well. Barriers to entries make supply inelastic. All right. In some industries, all right, there might be some barriers to entry, especially to new entrants, and that might also affect the supply of commodities. Okay. If the barriers to entry are so weak, okay, such that everyone can become a supplier, then it means that the supply of those commodities is going to be very constant at whatever price. So it becomes inelastic. Okay. But if the supply, the barriers to entry are so strong, then this might make the supply of a commodity elastic. Okay. This might make the supply of a commodity elastic, where a change in the price might mean that the supplier, if it is not favorable to them, they might end up, failing to supply or supplying less. Okay, because the supply is sensitive to the price. Okay. Okay. However, we also need to look at this point this way. If the barriers to entry are also strong, it might actually force the supply curve to be inelastic. Okay, in the sense that this, let's say, monopolistic supplier, the monopolistic maybe in a market where there is a few or one supplier, he might actually supply constantly at whatever price he deems fit. Okay, so he might continue to supply at the price even which is demanded by the market, considering that he is capitalizing on other factors. For example, economies of scale. Okay, he might be having a cheaper production, given the economies of scale. So where he has got the ability to procure raw materials in large quantities and he enjoys some bulk discounts there. So by the end of the day, his production systems are so low. So in such a situation, at whatever price that is charged by the market, his supply is going to be constant. Okay, so the demand, the supply of his commodities is going to be constant. So that the supply becomes inelastic. Okay, but if the barriers are weak, a conflict situation will arise because everyone has entered the market. So the supply becomes sensitive. Okay, the supply becomes sensitive to the price. all right, because there is now more competition and the suppliers are at pressure to adjust their price, so to supply based on the price. So in that case, then supply becomes elastic. Okay, let's talk of the time scale. All right, uh, elasticities vary with time. During the market period, only existing inventories and levels of output are available. So supply in this case is inelastic. Then, over the short run, quantities can be adjusted by working overtime or short time. Supply is quite elastic. Then, over the long run, plant can be built or shut down. Supply is very, very elastic. Okay, I'm sure that we are clear. Okay, let's move on to the price mechanism. This one is a bit more discursive in that here examiners would want us to show if we are appreciating everything that we have learned so far. Okay, uh, the power of the price mechanism is put to test. Okay, so remember we said that market forces are actually at play in the market, which means that the price, especially in a perfectly competitive environment, uh, the price mechanism is at work, where the supply of a commodity is actually determined by the market forces as well as the demand. So where these guys meet, that's what we call the equilibrium. This is the equilibrium, the point E. Okay, I'm sorry, my graph is a bit it's not let me just try to draw it once again, because if it shows like this, I'm not happy with it at all. So let me just try. Please allow me to just erase it and try to draw something nice to show some bit of energy. Okay, because if I teach you the wrong things, I don't want you to blame me. Okay, right, so let me try again. All right, so this one seems this one is even worse than the first one. All right, but I hope it's a bit well arranged. Okay, so this one is the supply curve, this one the demand curve. All right, and I say that at this point that's our equilibrium, and this is the equilibrium quantity on A and equilibrium price P. Okay, so at the equilibrium price, the at the equilibrium point, the consumers are prepared to purchase or to demand goods at this particular price P. Similarly, suppliers are also happy to supply their wares, their goods at that price. Okay, that's what is happening. Okay, so in essence, the price mechanism, uh, brings together the equilibrium price, P. Okay, we call this process this price, the equilibrium price, as the market clearing clearing price. Why? Because quantity, okay, the quantity, let us call this quantity Q, alright, because quantity Q, alright, is both supplied, okay, is both supplied and demanded. The quantity Q is both supplied and demanded, so that there is no surplus, no shortage. Okay, so there is no surplus, no shortage at the price P. Okay, that's what happens. Alright, but what happens if the price goes above the equilibrium price? They say the price has gone from P upwards. Alright, so at any price above P, at a price above P, there is going to be excess supply. There is going to be excess supply. And what does that mean? It means that whatever, let's say the price is now P1, you can see that all these, the quantities, these ones, let's say Q1, are going to be supplied, but the market, the demand is at this level. So all these will be excess. Okay, there will be some excess supply. Alright, no one is going to buy them. Similarly, if the price is below P, okay, if the price is below P, okay, there will be some shortage. There will be some shortage as there will be excess demand. Alright, if the price goes here, right, let's say here at P2, okay, it means there is going to be, the demand will be here, okay, let's say Q2. Alright, but the problem is only this quantity is going to be supplied. Q3 is going to be supplied. That's the problem, because suppliers will not be happy at that price. That's the issue of the price mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. There is going to be some shortage. Alright, the demand will be this way, this much, okay, because remember, the lower the price, the higher the demand. But in terms of the supply, to the mind of the supplier, they are also rational, these suppliers. So they are not going to supply anything more than quantity 3. So there will be a few items that are going to be supplied by the supplier, and those could be due to issues like corporate social responsibility. You know, some suppliers might feel that they need to just assist, but they won't do it on full capacity. They'll just supply a few just to ensure that their name is still present on the market, but they are not going to be serious players. So there is going to be some shortage of commodities. So what are the functions of the price mechanism? That could be a question which examiners might be interested in. Okay, so let us discuss about the functions of the price mechanism. Functions of the price mechanism. Okay, here we are talking of the market forces. All right. So the first point should be market prices and their movement. Okay, act as signals to producers, and enabling them to produce what is most needed. Okay, so when you analyze the movement of prices, you would actually learn what to produce and which markets do you have to produce to. All right, and then another point, when firms operate efficiently uh, responding to market signals, and controlling their costs, they then receive a special reward in the form of a profit. So by carefully analyzing what is happening and by synchronizing production processes in line with the dictates of the market, the firms might ensure that by the end of the day they are profitable. Alright, so the price mechanism acts as a signal to whatever managerial decision the firms make. Alright, the action of firms, the actions of firms, okay, the actions of firms in responding to the profit opportunities, the actions of firms in responding to the profit opportunities enable them to allocate resources to their best use. Okay, so that's all about the purposes of the price mechanism. So diagrammatically, okay, let me just try to squeeze a diagram somewhere. Okay, there's no space, so we just have to try to all right, let's forget about this for now. Okay, let's forget about this for now. We are having our graph as this one. All right, this is our graph, ladies and gentlemen, and price, quantity. All right, and this is our demand curve, and this one is our supply curve. All right, and we have already seen in the previous graph that this point is the equilibrium price. Okay, that's the equilibrium price. Okay, so which means that if we charge, if the price goes up, okay, if the price goes up, it means that we are going to have an excess supply of commodities. Okay, there is going to be an excess supply of commodities. If the price goes down, there is going to be an excess demand. Okay, so if the price goes up, it means the suppliers are motivated to supply more. Okay, they are motivated to supply more. All right, why? Because their goods are now fetching a lot of money. Okay, so technically what happens is this portion, we need to discuss this portion. This portion, ladies and gentlemen, is referred to in economics. This portion is referred to as the consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. Why is it called consumer surplus? Because some consumers would have paid more than the market price. P. Okay, so they've paid more than the market price. What about this portion, ladies and gentlemen? Let's talk about this portion. Okay. This portion is called producer surplus. Producer or supply surplus. Okay, producer surplus. In this case, some would have sold. Okay, would have sold at a price less than the market price. Okay, they would have sold at a price less than the market price. Alright, so the most palatable price should be the price P, that is, which will lead to the supply of an equilibrium quantity Q. Alright, so if that at the price P, there is no surplus either way, or there is no shortage. Okay, the price is a bit fair to everyone. Okay, let us now talk about, because by the end of the day, governments are not going to sit idle and watch you guys allow the market to do whatever it pleases to regulate everything. Okay, as you have seen here in this particular graph, you have seen that whatever price that was being charged below the market price was, or below or above the market price, was leading to some surpluses, either to the consumer or to the producer. That's what was happening. Okay, and we have also seen that the most good price is the equilibrium price, P. Okay, because everyone would benefit at that price. However, governments are not going to allow the market to go freely. Okay, because sometimes, as you have seen, there are some people who need to be protected. Okay, the society itself needs to be protected. All right, so if we allow the market to just go uncontrolled, we are bound to have some chaos. All right, so there is what is called the minimum and maximum prices. All right, so this is a continuation of this topic there. All right, so let me just try to erase my drawings here and my writing. Okay, this is a very important area of the syllabus, which is a rich pool of examination questions. So let me just try to take as much time as possible. So we are talking of market regulation, okay, where the government intervenes to ensure that its subjects are treated nicely by suppliers of commodities. All right, so the government ends up regulating the prices of commodities. So there is what is called a maximum price. A maximum price. Okay, the maximum price, sometimes referred to as the ceiling. Okay, is used to combat inflation. All right, it is used to combat inflation. Okay, or to make basic commodities available. Basic commodities available. We have seen this type of government behavior in the past decade, where the government tried by all means to ensure that the prices of basic commodities are within reach of all and sundry. So they put a price ceiling or a maximum price. All right, but the government could also put what is called a minimum price. A minimum price. Okay, it is also economically called a floor price. A floor, okay, which is used to secure incomes. Okay, incomes of favored producers. Okay, favored producers, such as farmers. Okay, so let me try to illustrate these points graphically. Alright, so let's start with an example on maximum price. Alright, so let us suppose we have got this graph here. Okay, as usual, we have got the price P and the quantity here. That's the price and quantity. Okay, and as usual, our supply curve, demand curve. Alright, we have our equilibrium price as this one. Okay, and the equilibrium quantity is as follows. Okay, but now hearing the masses, okay, hearing the cry of the masses, the government decided to set the maximum price for this particular commodity at M. Okay, thus this is the demand that will be that would exist. Okay, if the price goes down, remember, if the price goes down, quantities demanded increase. All right, so the quantities that will be demanded at this point would be, let's say, B. Okay, but our suppliers in their 5 senses would also supply this quantity. Okay, they would supply quantity A. So what does this mean? This means that there is going to be a shortage. Okay, there is going to be a shortage of supply. All these quantities, the quantity from A to B, would not be supplied, would not be available. So there will be a shortage of commodities on the market. Why? Because although the demand is at this point, the quantities that could be supplied are at this point. That's the issue with the price, the maximum price. Okay, however, these quantities in short supply could only be procured by by those consumers who are ready to pay a premium. So to pay a premium, all right, let's say price K. All right, so if there are consumers who are ready to pay a premium price, price K, which is above the equilibrium price, then they are ready to obtain those commodities which are not available on the market. So essentially, this means that a black market has been created, because on the mainstream market the commodities are no longer there. Okay, and because they are no longer there, there is now a premium to be paid, okay, to obtain them somewhere from a market called a black market. Okay, that's the potential effect of the price, the maximum price. Now let's talk of the minimum price. Let's talk of the minimum price. Suppose the government has set what is called a minimum price. So a minimum price. Okay, we have our graph as usual. This is our price, ladies and gentlemen, and this is our quantity. All right. So if we are having this situation, we have our supply curve as usual, demand curve as usual. All right. Then the equilibrium price is this one, which means at this price, the quantities which could be demanded are those ones or supplied. Okay. Now, a minimum price is usually set above the equilibrium price. Okay. Okay. So this is usually done to protect the masses from exploitation. Okay, there could be some market, let's say, of laborers in the agricultural industry who might end up being exploited by the rich. So the government usually put the minimum above, regardless of the fact that there are so many laborers who could be employed at a far much cheaper price. The government would try to regulate the minimum wage to ensure that it is set above what the market deems fit, just to protect their those vulnerable members of the community. However, if the price is set, okay, usually if the minimum price is set above the equilibrium price, there is going to be some side impacts. Okay, let's say the price has been set, the price K, this one, that's the price that has been set as the minimum price for a commodity, right? This means that the quantities demanded would be this one, and the quantity supplied would be this one. Because there is more money, okay, there is more supply of that commodity. There is more supply. Okay, everyone now wants to work. If it is in case of labor, everyone wants to work, right? Everyone wants to work. If it is in the production of maize, everyone wants to be in the production of maize because GMB is promising more money. There's a higher price that has been set as the minimum. All right, so everyone wants to supply maize. Okay, as you can see, quantity Q1 there. All right, but the market is ready to buy only this quantity. That's where the demand is. That is Q, let us say Q2. All right, so what is going to happen then? What is going to happen? All right, this would lead to excess. There's going to be some excess supply of commodities. All right, because the demand is here, so all this is just going to be excess. Okay, there's going to be excess supply. All right, because what is needed is just this quantity. Okay, that's Q2 is only going to be demanded, so the excess is going to be disposed of somewhere. Okay, that's the idea there. So there are some trade-offs between setting a minimum price or a maximum price, or still there is going to be some impact even if the government tries to control it. It's either there could be some side effects as well. All right, so let us attempt this question and we call it a day. Okay, let us try to attempt this question and we call it a day. All right, So supply of and demand for good Q. Supply of and demand for good Q are initially in equilibrium as shown in the diagram below. So we've got a good called Q that has been depicted by this paragraph, as by this graph. As you can see, the graph is just synonymous with other graphs we have already seen so far. Now the government introduces a maximum price P. Okay, maximum price P. So you can see equilibrium price was E, as you can see there. All right, as indicated here, that's the equilibrium quantity as well as the equilibrium price. All right, if you can just try to locate your P somewhere here, the PE. Okay, now the government has introduces a maximum price P. So you can see that price P is actually below the equilibrium price. What effect this will have on the quantity of good Q purchased? Right? You can see that at this price, which has been set by the government, price P, this line, as you can see it, okay, the quantities supplied are this one, but the quantities demanded are this one. So the question is saying how much is going to be purchased, how much is going to be sold by the end of the day. Okay, how much is going to be bought. Obviously the demand is high, but the demand is subject to the supply. Okay, the demand is subject to the supply. You can't demand something which is not there. All right, and unless you are prepared to pay a premium, as we have already indicated. In this case, the government has set the maximum price for this particular commodity at P, which is below the market price. All right, so obviously the price, the quantities of goods which are going to be purchased is going to be those which are available, which have been supplied. So these are the quantities. So if we go to our solution, then A is saying it will rise from G to E. This one is wrong. Okay, the quantities purchased are not going to rise. All right, they're not going to rise because the quantities which have been supplied, which will be available, will be at G. Okay, so the answer should actually be at G. But let us see. So all these ones, this one is just a red herring. Okay, let's talk of C. C is saying it will fall from H to G. Yeah, there could be something, but I'm sensing something which is not good with the idea of G. Okay, yeah, C is actually a distractor because there is some sense in it. However, if you have understood the theory so far, you could appreciate that C is actually wrong. Remember, we are talking of the movement in terms of the market. Before the price has been set, the maximum price was set by the government. The supply and demand, were intersecting at the point E, as you can see, the equilibrium position. That's where the demand and supply was. Okay, but the question is now asking us if we appreciate what is going on. Okay, now hypothetically or in theory, we can see that as the maximum price was set at P, okay, the the demand in theory was supposed to be at H, okay, because that's where the demand would be when it comes to at that price, I mean to the effect of the price reduction, okay, but the actual demand was not at H. That's one point we need to have sunk in our hearts, okay. The actual demand was not at H. The actual demand was at E, at the equilibrium price. So it can't fall from H to G. This is why this is wrong. But the actual demand is going to fall from this point to G. I hope you have been helped, ladies and gentlemen, with this presentation, and I think I should rest my case. Okay, I should rest my case. As you can see there, those are my contacts. Okay, you can get in touch with me 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are going to be there. All right, don't forget to visit our website at www.transcarconsulting.co.zw for further coaching, because our coaching model includes the videos, includes reading notes, also assignments. Okay, after you watch this, you need to be given tutor crafted exam forecast questions on which you should practice. Okay, you should practice to ensure that you have understood all the nitty-gritties in relation to a particular topic under study. So please inform your friends, okay, direct them to Transcar Consulting Services for undiluted coaching, serious coaching, so that we preach the gospel of professional accountants to the ends of the globe. Until next time, may you please feel very, very excited. I am your boy, Jerome Timkulu. I'm signing out. Thank you very much.